Alright, this time we're taking a look at the Siege Tarask for the Orgoth Sea Raiders. Again, we've seen this bare bones packaging before, no pictures, no anything. Let's see. Yep. That's it. Zoom out a little bit. So this is a solo for Orgoth on an 80mm base. So he's going to be a big old boy. Let's take a look here. Great detail. You know, there's a little bit of these little tiny sprues to be cleaned up, but they're a piece of cake. They come run off. It's pretty cool detail. See his tail. Let's take a look at his head. Oh yeah, there we go. Some big old tusks. So he has a ranged attack with skewer. He drags you into contact with him, and I guess this is the guy with a little harpoon, sits on his back. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Can't be mad about that. And he's got some big old long arms on this guy. Let's see, so he sits on the base. This guy seems like a pretty good model. Rules wise, I say. Yeah, he's big though. He's not as big as the war boar, but he's a pretty big guy. Pretty impressive looking. His humongous tusks. So he has dual attack, and then he has a ranged attack, as I mentioned, that has this little guy on top that has skewer. So the idea is he shoots you with the harpoon, drags you into base-to-base contact with him, and then he has 3 initial melee attacks, and with the dual attack he can do all of them. He also has a mechanic around rage tokens. So he can spend those rage tokens. He earns the rage tokens in combat, and then he can spend those rage tokens to one of his abilities gives him some extra movement. One of his abilities lets him heal, which is good, especially on a guy like this. And then one of his rage abilities gives a bubble, like debuffs for your opponents, which is pretty good. So I think he seems pretty decent. These 80mm character models seem pretty cool. Let's see how these arms go on there. Yeah, that looks like that's where it goes. Pretty cool. You know, I was never a fan of the huge 120mm colossals in Warmachine, and I wasn't a fan of what it did to the game. Scaling the game up, higher points, more models on the table. Warmachine was always a skirmish game to me, so I was never a fan of all that. But I think the 80mm are a much better fit. I mean, I realize the colossals are still in the game, but these 80mm base guys, I feel is a much better fit for the feel and the theme of the game, and I don't think they do as much damage to the game as the 120mm guys do. The 120s, their points are just so expensive, and then obviously people want to bring them, so the points levels of the game goes up, and then, you know, if you're not running a colossal, now all of a sudden you have a dozen more models on the table than you wanted to begin with. But the 80s aren't bad. Points cost, they're better. Size-wise, they're better. They don't take up so much of the battlefield. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I'm a fan. I like them. Look at this guy. He's tough.